Hey everybody, Jonathan Bailor back with another bonus Calorie Myth and Smarter Science of Slim show. Plus, I have a special guest today, which is the frog sitting in my throat. So please forgive my raspy voice, but hopefully you won't have to hear too much of it because we have just a fabulous guest here, an individual who is doing very innovative stuff. There's a lot of folks in the eating and exercise world, but there's very few folks that have very unique contributions to add. And today's guest is one of those individuals, and that's why I was so excited to bring him on and share his wonderful work with you. His name is Mark David, and he is the founder for the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. And that's interesting because we all know that eating isn't just about our gut and our hormones. It also involves our brain, and it involves our brain on many levels, not just from a appetite regulation perspective, but from a deep psychological perspective. So Mark David, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, Jonathan. Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, my friend.
Well, Mark, let's start from the very beginning here. How did you get involved in psychology plus eating? What took you on that path?
Popped out of the womb, deeply asthmatic, allergic, almost died a handful of times in infancy. This was back in the late 50s, early 60s. My parents would take me from doctor to doctor. Absolutely nothing worked. I was the generation raised on Fruit Loops, Kool-Aid, TV dinners, marshmallow fluff. I'd never seen a fresh fruit or vegetable. At 5 years old, kind of mind-blowing when I think about it, I asked my mother, because I'd heard a rumor that fruits and veggies were good for you, asked her to buy me apples and peas and carrots in a can. That was my concept of fruits and veggies. She did. Coincidence or not, my health started changing. And that's a magical connection. When you start to see, I can empower myself and change my health at any age. It's a game changer. So I became a nutrition fanatic, took it as a profession. But here's the thing, and a lot of us notice this. You could know a heck of a lot of nutrition. You could tell people the best information in the universe, and they could be the smartest, most motivated people. And oftentimes I would hear, well, I know what you told me. You were absolutely right. I just couldn't do it. Yeah. And then I realized, oh my goodness, until I understand the mind of the eater, I can't necessarily help anyone from a nutritional perspective. So I'm thinking, great, this is back in like the late 70s. I want to read a book on eating psychology. I want to go take a course. And there wasn't any. So it was then I decided, I'm going to figure this thing out. I got my master's degree in psychology. I fanatically studied eating psychology in any way I could, eating disorders, just started looking around, working with people. What would be an eating psychology for everyone? Like, why do we overeat? Why do we binge eat? Why do we emotionally eat? What's this whole thing about body image? How come there's a lot of people who trying to lose weight can't do it? Is there an emotional component? Is there a mind-body component? So I was driven by, to me, essentially what I have felt are powerful questions, and that's what's motivated me.
So Mark, in all of these years of experience in working with the countless individuals you have, what is, or is there something unique about the psychology of eating from the psychology of addiction in general? Because now we're seeing, as I'm sure you obviously know very well, that more and more research is showing that food versus other drugs is becoming an arbitrary distinction, right? Like sugar is the new nicotine in many ways. So is there a unique aspect to food, or is it all just stuff you put in your body can become addictive?
Oh, I love this question. And to me, here's the challenge, because in this pantheon called food, we've got a lot of interesting substances. There's things like sugar or caffeine, which I'm going to call a food drug. Yeah, it's food. Yeah, it's drug. And chances are, if this stuff was invented today, if it never existed and it tried to get FDA approval to be a food, it wouldn't be. They would be drugs. So they're powerful. So to me, yes, it's clear that you and I and any human brain and physiology can get addicted to certain specific foods or substances. Here's the challenge, though. The word addiction has this huge kind of energy behind it. There's a big subset of information. I'm an addict. You're addicted. And when we say a lot of people are taking the food addiction thing and collapsing it into, well, I'm a food addict, meaning I'm addicted to eating, I'm addicted to all food, and that collapses a lot of people. It drains their energy, it brings them down, it sets them on a psychological path that's debilitating, because I could be addicted to cocaine. I don't need cocaine for life, but I need food for life. So I think we have to be respectful of the human body, that there's a difference between a drug addiction and calling ourselves food addicts. So I'm going to say, yeah, somebody might be addicted to sugar. They might be addicted to caffeine. I've seen people get addicted to Diet Coke. That's the hardest food addiction I have to take people off of sometimes. So I just caution people around calling themselves a food addict as if it's, I'm addicted to eating. That's like saying I'm an oxygen addict or a breathing addict. Doesn't work.
I love that point, Mark, because it always does seem like there's this false dichotomy posed. For example, some folks say, oh, well, sugar is like the new nicotine, and you can give up smoking, but you can't give up eating. And it seems like we're not talking about giving up eating. That's absurd. We're actually talking about eating more of the right kinds of foods. We're talking about giving up certain substances that are prone to being addictive. And one example I like to give, and I'm curious if you could geek out on this with me for a second here, is, for example, if you told a person, hey, I want you to just stop eating tilapia. Just don't eat tilapia anymore and only eat cod. They wouldn't be like, oh my God, tilapia. Like, I just have tilapia cravings at night and I can't give up tilapia. But if you tell someone, stop eating sugar and instead eat stevia, there's a much, much different psychological and physical reaction. Why do certain foods react so differently in that way?
I think it's all about the power of a substance to hijack the nervous system and to hijack body chemistry. We meaning the scientific we haven't really dove into, like, what are the actual mechanisms that are going on if somebody's addicted to caffeine. I used to work for the coffee lobby 25 years ago, and they would bring in reams of research, and I was the guy that would take the scientific papers, and they wanted me to spin it into popular language to show that caffeine was good or coffee was good. So back then there wasn't a lot of positives coming out. But the whole point is, anytime there was any kind of research that would start to show a negative, they wanted to push it aside. So oftentimes in the research community, there's not a lot of impetus to really go into, like, what's the exact mechanisms for sugar. For sure it's going to be around blood sugar dysregulation. For sure it's going to be the insulin and cortisol highs. Those hormones are going to track each other profoundly. We know that there's great research, fascinating research on sugar in young people and how it jacks up adrenaline levels tremendously. So you and I can consume sugar. Yeah, we might get a cortisol rise. We might get an adrenaline rise. You give it to a 7-year-old, it is like giving them a powerful stimulant. So I think the research, we need more.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, so Mark, let's focus on sugar here for a second. And this is me as curious as our listeners probably are, because these are things that I've experienced personally, and I'm hoping you could shed some light on them for me. So sugar, we all know, like, there was a recent book published called Salt, Sugar, Fat, or Fat, Sugar, Salt, or something. And we know that those are the three things that can cause craziness, among other things like MSG. But let's talk about salt, sugar, and fat here for a second. It seems like sugar is very unique in that trifecta, at least to me. For example, eating pure salt is disgusting. It's not as if the more pure we get in terms of salt clearly has diminishing marginal returns. You salt something, it's good, then it becomes disgusting. Same thing with fat. If you're eating a fatty piece of meat, I don't know too many people who like to cut off the pure chunk of fat and just say, oh my God, this is so good. However, sugary cereal, what's everyone's favorite part? The milk at the bottom of the bowl, which is basically pure sugar. So why is it that sugar seems to be like, we want 100% sweetness, but for salt and fat, it diminishing marginal returns? Does that make sense?
Love the question. I think there's two roads to really kind of go down to get some interesting information. First road is evolutionary biology. So when you and I are, little creatures evolving millions of years ago, here's what happened. Preferentially, we developed a very powerful sweet taste bud. So the way taste buds are working, they're going to be firing all over the tongue. Now, we determine, our distant ape-like ancestors determine that you might find something bland in the environment. It could be poisonous. You might find something pungent or bitter. It could be poisonous. If you find anything out in nature that is sweet, it ain't going to kill you. There is no way. There are no poisonous, kill you right now sweet foods in nature. So the brain said, this is a powerful reward. I am safe here. Next, you go to the infant's as yet undeveloped nervous system. Everything is experienced as one. If you taste mother's milk, it's mildly sweet. To an infant's tongue, it's very sweet. So there's already this kind of inborn genetic memory of mother's milk held, touched, fed. You know, Sigmund Freud had this fascinating term. He said infants are polymorphously perverse, meaning every stimuli that comes in, they can't determine what it is. It's all one. The sound of my mother's voice, her touch, her love, the milk, the sweet, it's all experienced as one. So we develop this sense of sweet equals love, touch, mother, safety. So the reward in our brain when we get something sweet, first of all, it goes way back into evolutionary history, meaning I'm safe. And it also comes equipped with sensations and cellular memory of love, connection, nourishment, I'm okay. And at a fundamental, so here's the other road to walk down, which might be a more cosmic or spiritual one. We want love. We want the sweet life. So there's a reason why we have those kind of metaphors. Oh, she's so sweet. He's so sweet. That's such a sweet thing that you say. We don't, oh, yeah, he's bitter, you know. So there's a psychological quality to taste that gives us an experience. The yogis of old, they believed or they said that there are certain states of consciousness where you experience divine nectar and you literally feel sweet all over the body. So whether you believe that or not, the bottom line is there's this historic, spiritual, and evolutionary association with sweet. It's like the big reward. It's built into our biology.
So how can we then practice what I call safe sweeteners? Because I know there's a lot of folks, I mean, and you may be one of them, who are just like, you know, sweet, the taste of sweet is the devil's work. Maybe I'm over exaggerating, but yeah. And we just have to be careful. It's like trying to take a little bit of cocaine. That seems like an exaggeration to me. It seems like telling someone they can never experience something sweet for the rest of their life is a recipe for at least deprivation. So what do you tell to your clients, and what have you seen in the research is the non-addiction prone strategy for sweets?
You know, I think it's always fascinating for people to have the experience of letting something go for a while, as best as humanly possible, just to let the body find balance. Mm-hmm. It's no different than if you and I are overworking like crazy, you go take a vacation, let go of email, you let go of the phone, you let go of work for a week, we recalibrate. So what happens is when a lot of people recalibrate, you let go of sweet for 2, 3, 4 weeks, all of a sudden you find your natural relationship with it. You know, part of it is also helping people understand how they use substances to regulate discomfort. What happens is we often give a lot of power to the sugar. Oh, yeah, this addicts me. And it can. Some people are more sensitive to others. Some people are more sensitive to caffeine, sensitive to alcohol, sensitive to sugar. So I think it's good to look at it. I could eat sugar, and then I could not eat it for weeks. Doesn't matter to me. Some people, it'll trigger them. I could drink tequila. Some people, they have one sip of alcohol, they're going to go down the alcoholism road. So I think we have to respect biochemical individuality of each of us, and at the same time, notice how we use any substances, in this case sweet, to regulate our discomfort. Oftentimes we'll use sweet as almost a soft addiction, meaning, yeah, you know, I came home, I had a lousy day at work, sugar. And we're using it in a soft way. It might not be intense, but it's, in a way, it's taking us away from our strongest integrity, our strongest self. We don't have control over our mind. I have to use the little bit of sugar, the little bit of this to make myself feel good because I'm not communicating in my relationship or not being honest with my boss. So we'll use these things. So I'm interested in the personal development work that happens alongside of the nutritional work. To me, that potentizes things so much more.
All right, so Mark, if I understand correctly, it sounds like maybe like any substance that could be addictive. For example, there's plenty of people that drink wine and they do not become alcoholics. So to just say you can never have alcohol seems like it might be an exaggeration. But for someone who is an alcoholic, just saying, have a glass of wine per week is probably not a good idea. And just like we look at alcohol and say, okay, alcohol can be used for quote unquote good or evil, depending on other things going on in your life. It sounds like you're saying the same thing exists for food. Is that tracing it back and saying, why are you using sugar in this way is the big question to ask.
Exactly. And it's a moving target, that question. It's a powerful question because then we can be in relationship with the substance instead of, as you say, label it good or bad. As soon as you label something bad or good with a moralism to it, like I avoid GMO foods. I don't like them at all. But to label a food evil or bad, it almost sets up this relationship where we're going to crave it. We're going to... Here's another piece about that I think might be important from the field of toxicology. It'll take you, 6 years to get your PhD in toxicology. We could sum up the field, please forgive me guys, in 5 words: the dose makes the poison. Yeah. So, you and I have mercury circulating in our systems right now. There's not enough to kill us. So, what's the dose that can work for you? Again, for some people, they know if you watch your body, I could eat a certain amount of this and be okay. And there's some people, as soon as they hit a certain amount of sugar, it taps into that feed-forward loop in the brain that they want more and more and more. So if you can be aware and notice, what's my tolerance? When do I hit that point of toxicity where I'm all of a sudden being driven? Then the relationship with food, with sugar, becomes interesting. So how much alcohol could you do before you need to take a taxi home? Like, you want to really measure that. Same with a powerful substance like sugar. How much can I do with this such that it works for me? For some people, it might be none. Fine. For some people, whatever it is. But let's respect the relationship, explore it, and then kind of let the chips fall where they may, I think.
I like that, Mark. Well, so to wrap up here, what in all your years of experience, and I know you've spoken with many, many individuals about this, both clinically, practically, and socially, what would you say are your top 3 tips for individuals who, like, I get the science, I understand, eat nutrient-dense foods, avoid processed stuff, sugar's bad, I get it. I get home at night, I'm tired, I'm crabby, all that scientific knowledge isn't really helping me at that moment. So what are the top 3 tips you would give to help handle that psychology of eating?
I love it. For me, first tip number 1 is find out what helps put you into a relaxation response. Because essentially, whenever you and I are addicted to a food, technically speaking, the moment you're driven to go for it, or let's say you're soft addicted or you're attached to a food, the moment you're driven to go for it, you are in some degree of stress chemistry. There's a drivenness. We're going for that food because there's a stress that's being built up. There's a discomfort. There's a stress chemistry. We eat the food. It actually calms us down. Now, it might have negative effects. So what I'm saying is we're actually turning to food oftentimes to create stress relief in the system. So what else helps me relieve stress? It might be music. It might be TV. It might be a conversation. It might be taking a shower. It might be getting out there and moving. It might be whatever it is. It's a great question to ask. What helps me empower myself to take control over my own mind and body as a tool? See, to me, the mind and body, it's a tool. It's like a hammer. If you know how to use a hammer, you could do some good stuff. If you're not so smart about using a hammer, you could destroy a lot of things in your room. So how do I see mind and body as a tool? take some, it's almost like taking some of the mind chatter out of it. Oh, I can't believe I overate that food. No, okay, so you overate it. What do I have to do next time? So what regulates me? How do I regulate my system so I can learn how to relax so I don't need this and that in order to,
Yeah.
I think that's number one tip. You know, honestly, yogis, athletes, meditators, shamans have been doing this for ages. Breathing. It's the easiest. It is free. It regulates the mind. It puts you into parasympathetic dominance. It helps both hemispheres of the brain come into synchrony. It's a powerful tool. So those are my favorites. So asking yourself, what helps put me into the relaxation response? Can I use breathing to harness my mind? And then from there, you can make a choice. You might still eat the sugar. You might still go for the chips. But you know something? When you and I are in a relaxed state, and I mean true parasympathetic dominance, appetite is more naturally regulated. Yeah. If we're in stress chemistry, you're being chased by a lion, appetite regulation mechanism is out the door. All your metabolic energy is going into fighting and fleeing. So the point is, I can't have my true natural appetite regulation if my mind is scattered and it's back at work and it's arguing with somebody who's not even in the room. So it's almost taking it away from nutrition for a moment and bringing it back to me.
Mark, that is so transformative, I think, because so many of us can spend so much time looking for the next pill, powder, or potion, which in and of itself is almost like a stress response. It's like, oh my God, I can't handle this. I need some magic formula. And that's the exact tape that's causing this stress in the first place. So it's like you said, you're in a hot state, getting a cold state. That is transformative. So Mark, where can folks go to learn more about this? Like, what do you have coming up next, and what are some resources folks could use to cool themselves off in this way?
Thanks so much for asking. Go to our website, psychologyofeating.com. We have a free video guide. It's called the Dynamic Eating Psychology Breakthrough. You hear me talking about a lot of these principles. It's really great stuff. We have a professional training and eating psychology coach certification training. It's a very powerful online distance learning program. That's more for people wanting to do this as a professional. We have some public programs, a really good one that kind of hits the nail on the head with what we've been talking about, called Transform Your Relationship with Food. That program's coming up soon, so people can get on our website, learn about Transform Your Relationship with Food, sign up for a free audio guide. We have tons of content, tons of blogs, free stuff that really goes into exactly what we're talking about. My second book, The Slow Down Diet, I go into the mind-body science of what we've been talking about, stress chemistry and relaxation chemistry, but really from a wider perspective, not just science, but from, to me, we are creatures of mind and body and something even bigger than that. Let's explore that. Let's play with that. It's fascinating. It expands the nutrition conversation to me and infuses it with a little bit of mystery, So,
which is definitely needed, because folks that come out and say, oh, just do exactly this, we have it all figured out, to me, that's a great sign that that person does not know what they're talking about, because you and I both know we are just starting to understand this amazingly complicated system. So, Mark, what was the name of that website again?
Psychologyofeating.com, all one word.
Beautiful. And Mark David is MARC space DAVID, correct?
You got it.
Beautiful. Well, Mark, again, thank you so much for joining us today and providing all of these wonderful mind-expanding and emotionally calming resources for us. I deeply appreciate it.
Jonathan, thank you so much for the great work you're doing in the world. I love it. It's taken a lot of us to push the envelope and just open up the field of nutrition and healing and just give it some new insight and new vibes. So congrats to you as well, my friend.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed this wonderful conversation as much as I did. Again, our guest today is the brilliant Mark David. Check him out at psychologyofeating.com. And remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Chat with you soon.